Mr. Shinoy. Thank you for the introduction. Let me first welcome everyone who's joined this session. I'd like to thank the Calcutta Management Association, along with Mr. Amitabh Datta, for inviting me for this day with the Oration. It's a tough act to follow Mr. Narayan. It's always a pleasure to listen to him, for he packages the fruits of his vast experience with admirable simplicity. I treasure each interaction with him. Today, it's my honor and privilege to speak at the 20th Sir Jehangir Gandhi Memorial Oration. Sir Jehangir Gandhi is a stalwart of the Tata Group and a stalwart for the whole country. He was a Padma Bhushan awardee and recipient of many other marks of distinction. Here is a sampler of the first he's associated with. He was the first general manager of Disco. As a technocrat, he was among the first to recognize the need for adopting standards and achieving standardization in the Indian industry. In JRD's words, he's the man who did more for Jamshedpur than any other person, laying secure foundations on which most of the Jamshedpur companies rose to their present size and stage. This very individual also was the founder president of Calcutta Management Association. As we partake in the fruits of his labor, let me take a moment to pay tribute to him. Today, I intend talking about the new normal reimagining the future. My speech will address the acceptance of COVID as a reality. I will then present historical precedents for our country's eventual recovery. Finally, I will propose a path that we can walk together and make this promise of recovery a reality. At the crux of the mantra, it's all about recover, rebuild, and reimagine. These are truly unprecedented times. I remember the economy was getting back in good shape last financial year, and we were seeing green shoots of growth with our economy on the mend and recovering from a series of market events. There was a huge sense of optimism across the board. However, at that time, towards the end of the year, the pandemic started and it gained foothold in every nation. The financial year opened to a near complete shutdown of all businesses and operations. Panic and fear took over our minds. The mass media brought in much more anxiety. Its impact over the next few months was anybody's guess. Over time, anxiety has turned into acceptance. People, as well as businesses, are taking steps to restore normalcy, while COVID-19 continues to grow around us. We are seeing a consistent rise in infection across the globe, and as a matter of fact, there are many countries who are facing a second wave which is much stronger than the first. Worldwide cases stand at over 55 million, with India next only to the US at 9 million. COVID-19 has had a far-reaching impact on the growth across all economies. IMF's World Economic Outlook, as on October 20, projects global growth to fall by 4.4% in 2020. If you look at the projected numbers for USA, it's negative 4.3. Japan is at negative 5.3. EU seems bleak at 8.3%, with the UK close to negative 10%. Persistent social distancing and stalled reopening weigh heavily on the outlook. Back home in India, when we look at the projections in Q1 when the pandemic actually started, it showed a grim picture with the economy contracting anywhere between 9 to 10%. We have seen the numbers for the first quarter where the economy contracted at over 20%. This number has fallen down in Q2. It was expected that in the best case, GDP growth may take a positive turn by the fourth quarter of 2020. However, our resilience has helped us bounce back faster and also with a vengeance. The economic impact of COVID is fading fast, though the COVID numbers are rising. We hope to see positive growth, not in Q4, but now we are expecting to see positive growth in this quarter, in quarter 3 of 2021. And it's all thanks to the role which is being played by the government and all regulators working in tandem. I think we as an economy saw a pretty quick response in all the right areas being put in by our government as well as the regulators. Today, uh, you know, when we talk about the difficult times which we are facing today, we should not remember that we've had and have seen these phases earlier also in our lifetime. The Asian financial crisis of the late 90s, the global meltdown in the 2007-2008, and to an extent, the demonetization. We saw all of these. Our economy has time and again shown the ability to stand up and move forward. In each of these incidents, the bounce back started in a couple of quarters and we matched a projected growth rate in 4 to 5 quarters. The same seems to be happening now. History seems to be repeating itself. From the time the pandemic started, we are seeing a bounce back already. It took us about a couple of quarters to bounce back, and I believe in the next 2 quarters, when we open into the next financial year, we will see growth coming back. In fact, the belief is this, that the next year we will grow in somewhere close to double-digit numbers. When we look at different sectors in the economy, these sectors are facing the impact of COVID in different ways. We can classify sectors of the Indian economy into 4 buckets based on their vulnerability. Some have seen growth despite the pandemic, while others have seen business really come down to a standstill. There are the unharmed sectors. These comprise of the retail, food and drug industry, pharma, healthcare, telecom, agriculture, digital media, online education, and so on. This category enjoys a unique positioning because of its offerings. Obviously, they have the opportunity to thrive and even expand as the demand remains unaffected or has even increased for some of them. Then there are the relatively insulated ones. These include IT, technology, uh, energy and utilities, oil and gas, insurance. All these industries saw a demand which got muted when the pandemic started, but the recovery was quick. This sector will have minimal impact on their performance numbers when we close this financial year. Then we have what we call as a sector which is seeing a V-shaped recovery. This includes financial services, transportation and logistics, aerospace and defense, metals and mining, construction, building materials, chemicals, machinery, auto components, and also consumer durables. These companies typically have leveraged balance sheets wherein a slowdown creates immediate liquidity and P&L strain. However, we are seeing that the stronger ones in these sectors have bounced back to the V-shaped recovery and will come back to normalcy by the time we close this year. In fact, some of the companies in this sector may gain market share at the expense of the weaker ones. Lastly, we have sectors that have been hit the hardest, what we are today calling them as structurally challenged ones. The companies here include companies in travel and tourism, hospitality, offline and education, fashion, luxury. The pandemic seems to have disrupted the business model, wherein there is a demand collapse and it's difficult to predict the level or the timing of recovery. It is thus extremely important that these companies rediscover themselves and establish new ways of existence. The key at this point of time is to remain afloat, and as recovery may take a little longer, to keep resources in place so that they can bounce back when things become better. Though this virus is stubborn, I think the human resilience is even tougher. It's very important to fight it on our terms and ensure that and ensure that we advance and we lay down the rules on the way the future will be. The approach to usher in the new normal phase could be in 3 steps. recover, rebuild, and reimagine. When we talk about recover, it's about safeguarding our interests in terms of people and operations and recovering from the lows. When we talk about rebuilding, it's about managing the in-between phase of rebuilding what's lost and broken. And this is something which we are going through. And then reimagining. It's about reimagining the business and operating models to reach the desired growth strategy again. I have tried to list down 10 action points which businesses need to look at. These are all drawn from our own experience as well as by looking at what others are doing. When we look at these points, we will realize that all companies need to work on all of these points. It's possible that for some of the points may be more relevant than the others, but I think all of these points apply to all the companies. First, it's about revisiting your priorities, replanning, and rebudgeting. Business volumes still remain severely impacted due to localized containment and social distancing norms. The increasing numbers are not helping. In fact, some cities are doing some shutdowns in specific areas or at specific times. Businesses need to revisit their priorities. They need to replan and reallocate resources for each change. They need to relook at budgets and reset the path for the short term and the medium term. There needs to be an effort to conserve resources and to be ready to grow once the situation improves. For example, when you look at the industry to which I belong, the financial services industry, the firms have had to revisit, replan, and rebudget. At first, due to the pandemic, and thereafter, due to the moratoriums affecting the collection cycle. And then we had more regulations which were changing in relating to restructuring and so on. And the whole situation changed, and that led to complete replanning. When we looked at a year back when budgets were being made, it was more about liability challenges for certain firms. It was not about asset growth, it was more about liability. And then it all changed completely. Money was available in abundance, the cost was low, but it was difficult to find good assets. And today, in the short run, it's not about growth, it's about giving priority to asset quality to ensure that the asset quality remains pristine. Similarly, when you look at the real estate sector, companies have had to prioritize across all 6 C's: customers, cities, capital, cash in hand, costs, as well as credibility. Companies are deferring launches and prioritizing completion of projects. There was a time when people wanted to launch more projects. Today, that's not the priority. Rather than margins, it's about cash flows. It's not about premium projects which can get you more money. It's about projects which can sell faster, houses which are ready to move in, and so on. Today, it's more about virtual visits rather than physical visits. In fact, most of the initial search is happening virtually, which is then leading to physical visits. Similarly, if you look at the power and transport companies, the first few months of the pandemic had a significant impact due to the demand pattern, with most of the companies shutting down their offices. Power companies had to revisit their capacity planning as well as had to rework their cash flow situation. With lockdowns, the transport sector too was compelled to rework their priorities. In fact, there was a time when intercity movement was not allowed and people had to work on essential commodities within the city itself. The second point is about managing cost and closely and cutting down on non-essentials. This is extremely important. There is a need to closely monitor the costs, trim down wherever possible, and pause on what is considered as non-essentials. While most companies have been forced to bring down costs, both structural and variable, it needs to be treated as an opportunity to relook at the operating model and cost structures. Today, it's not only about reducing costs, because since business models are changing, the need to bring about these changes quickly is extremely essential. For example, if you look at Shell, when COVID struck, they had set themselves a target of bringing down costs by 4 billion. This was under a project called Reshape. However, Besides that, they have decided to cut down on the cost of production of oil and gas by 40%. And it's not just to save costs, it's about being able to run businesses at lower costs. And this is becoming even more important because the company wants to get into new areas which may not have the same margins as their existing business. So it's imperative for them to learn to work with lower costs because the margins in their newer businesses may be much lower. Even in the airline sector, which has been hit hard due to the lower domestic traffic as well as international travel restrictions, full service carriers are learning how to act like low cost cousins, cutting costs through network rehauls as well as scheduling changes, while at the same time working towards slashing operational costs significantly. The Japanese airline Tata is planning to launch Speech, a low-cost model. Southwest is quickly adding short-haul locations to places where it was not flying before, because it is looking at traffic which is, which is today in demand between those locations. Similarly, auto sector companies have also initiated aggressive cost-cutting program, including cut in capital expenditure, so as to support profitability amidst uncertainty. In the initial in the initial months of the pandemic, auto plants across the country were running at capacities which were 50% lower than what they were before. There were supply chain and manpower related issues too. And in all of them, they realized the need to aggressively look at reducing costs. The third point is about rebuilding for speed. Speed is a must for both decisions and action. Rework, rebuild, aim for speed. Companies which acted fast were able to get back on their feet better than others. Flatter structures and focused implementation goes a long way in ensuring speed becoming integral to the culture of the organization. If you would remember, airlines used to spend years on analyzing data and deciding to enter into new routes. The same is being decision today in days. Decision to collaborate on routes across airlines is happening much faster than what it used to happen. Even if you look at Zomato, in the initial pandemic period, it quickly decided to start grocery delivery services in over 50 cities. If you look at Uber Eats now forms an important part of the overall Uber strategy and is helping them at this point of time where travel restrictions are more. Similarly, a lot of organizations who preferred in-person meetings for most important decisions now in the new normal have adopted virtual workspace solutions within a matter of days. This has greatly helped accelerate decision making without enduring any logistical nightmares. Fourth point is about rethinking footprint. Marking new territories, revisiting existing territories, and taking a deep look at what the market needs. Because the needs have changed, and it's important to cater to the changed market dynamics. The supply chain management process also has got altered. The chain needs to be adapted, and that too quickly. Even business partners, be it clients or vendor ecosystem, have changed, and businesses have to change too. Business continuity and not just costs for both upstream and downstream should be the top agenda item for most of the companies. For example, in the fast fashion sector, the pandemic has forced retailers to rethink their manufacturing bases and potentially involve more local manufacturing to ensure sustainable sourcing. It's not about cost alone, it's about sustainability of supplies. And that's the reason the whole model is being rethought. Businesses are realizing they can't put all eggs in one basket. I remember companies realized that you couldn't be dependent on a single principle because the priorities of the principles may change. Another sector that saw significant impact was auto, which we've all seen, where manufacturers worked on rehauling their supply chains to ease dealer inventory woes. 80% of the dealers' working capital was in the past blocked towards inventory financing. The dealers used to carry stock for 60 to 90 days. It's now being cut down into a much shorter period, where dealers carry much lesser number of units, focusing more on fast-moving models. There was news that three Apple top contract manufacturers plan to invest $1 billion in India in the next 5 years to tap into the new production-linked incentive scheme. The scheme offers companies cash incentives on any increase in sales of locally made smartphones over the next 5 years compared with 2019. If this is successful, and I'm sure it will be, this has potential to disrupt the supply chain footprint and project India as a major exporting hub. In fact, today, India exports more phones than it imports, a sea change from what it was some time back. The fifth point is about turbocharging the tech build-out, digitizing and automating. And this was referred to in the early part of today's inauguration day. The pandemic has actually helped businesses unleash the true potential of technology. Digitization is inevitable, and the sooner companies realize this, the better will it be. The right investments will yield results to smooth sail these times. Freeing up repetitive tasks and letting these tasks be automated is extremely important. There is a need to focus on higher productivity and efficiency. Technology, along with digitization and automation, is set to remain the cornerstone of success. Most companies would admit that they have covered more ground in terms of tech build-out and adoption in the last 6 months than in the last 2-3 years. I can give you an example of our company. The amount of innovation and new product launches we have had in the last 6 months since the pandemic started is more than what we did in the last 2.5 years. In fact, as per a leading consulting firm's latest report, this pandemic has accelerated digitization of customer interactions by a minimum of 3-4 years, and the share of digital products by over 7 years. So what was expected in terms of digital adoption over the next 6-7 years has now happened during this. And changes seem to be more permanent this time, as shifting to default is either not feasible or not affordable. This was coupled with a similar acceleration in the digitization of both internal operations, such as the back office production and R&D processes, and interactions with their supply chains across industries. The sixth point is to keep in touch with the new normal customers. Today, companies need to adopt a far more empathetic customer approach than ever before. Our most valued stakeholder today needs to be cared for, and we have to be available at all points of time. Mr. Nayamurthy also referred to this in his earlier part.
Thank you. Achha.
Listening, understanding, and meeting their expectations, whether spelled out or latent, is extremely important. Moreover, less touch is also an integral part of good customer experience. One of our leading Tata Group companies, Titan, has used this as an opportunity to create new customer journeys combining digital and physical experience, by which customers can discover, engage with merchandising experts, and buy digitally. After viewing the products virtually and making a short list of products, customers can request an appointment in a nearby retail store, spending less time in a safe environment. And all of this is possible because of the digital platforms. While augmented reality is improving customer experience, virtual reality is ensuring safety. In the education space as well, schools and colleges have been quick to adopt digital platforms with a combination of innovative teaching methods. This ensures that students continue their learning, albeit from a distance, limiting the pandemic's impact. We've really seen the changes which have happened in EdTech in our homes too. If you look at the way the tests are being conducted, the way education is happening, it's amazing to see how, while remaining safe, we can ensure that the learning continues to happen. Another example that comes to my mind is the recent launch by Taj Hotels of gourmet food delivery platform Human, where customers can order from iconic and celebrated restaurants of Taj, Vivanta selections from the comfort and convenience of their homes. Given the fact that a large number of customers may not want to step outside for a leisure lunch or dinner, the company chose to adopt to the new normal customers. 7. It's about reimagining work, workplace, and workforce. This year has been a year of the unimaginable. We are working remotely and yet so efficiently. The workplace is a different place. The way we work now is far more empowering. You can work from anywhere at any any point of time. We need to create workplaces that will keep our people, even employees. The workforce is becoming far more responsible. Not only are they concerned, but they are showing far more care for the organization and their colleagues. It's important to look at all of them, whether it is work, whether it's workforce, even things are changing on the workforce side because we're looking at because the nature of hiring is changing. And then the workplace. How do we ensure that we optimize workspace because we need to spend more time while working from home? Microsoft is now allowing more of its employees to work from home permanently under the new hybrid workplace guidance, which shall allow for far greater flexibility once US offices eventually open. If you look at within India, even companies like Tata projects where one couldn't have imagined because they need to they are in a space where they need to be in contact with each other. They are looking at 70% of their workforce not being in office. So it is not only the need of the hour. I think new business models are getting discovered by companies at this point of time. 8th point is about reskilling, relearning, which is the key to adapting to the new normal. Nurturing skills to cater to the new world order is not an option anymore. Investing in oneself for self-growth and the growth of the organization has to go hand in hand. One silver lining that we can harness now is that learning, like the way we work, can be done at any time at one's own convenience. The world is one's oyster. Learn, relearn, and keep evolving to stay valuable. Darwinian theory of survival of the fittest has never been more relevant. At our company, even before the pandemic, we ensured that our team members upskill from time to time and that too across grades. From short-term offline courses to a series of online courses, our employees seized the opportunity to add value. And now in these times, COVID has only reinforced in our people the importance of learning at all points of time. And when you open these digital platforms, what we are also realizing that there were certain hidden talents and hidden desires of individuals to learn, which are coming out in the open. And we are seeing far more passion being brought by them, not only in learning, but in then deploying those learnings in everyday work life. The 9th point is about the opportunity to make bold bets, buyouts, sale, or even highlights. Unprecedented times call for extraordinary opportunities as well. Seeking those bold prospects can prove to be a game changer. This is the time. Futuristic companies, while safeguarding the present, are acting proactively to reach their business portfolio. In fact, in certain sectors, the valuations may just be ripe for takeovers. These companies read the situation better than the others, and they make bold bets, right from buyouts to augmenting the portfolio to hive-offs and outright sale of non-core business. Chevron, for example, is taking over Noble Energy for over $5 billion in the first ever deal announced since the pandemic shook the energy sector. As quoted, the acquisition is expected to bring geographical diversity, increase capital flexibility, and improve Chevron's ability to generate strong cash flows. Similarly, opportunistic partnerships and through an acquisition, Merck has made a major COVID-19 push. It acquired EMIS, an Austrian private company that develops vaccines. It then also announced a partnership with a global health non-profit company to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, and with another company to develop an oral antiviral drug. All of this happening because the company thought that this was the opportune time to do so. The last point, which is extremely important, is something which this man would be also referred to in a way, is engaging with peers, society, regulators, and government is extremely important at this point in time. We should remember it's not about our own company, it's about our industry at this point. It's all about collaboration when it's a matter for the industry or safety. There are some sectors which are more regulated than the others to protect consumer and the nation's interest. And it's important for companies in these sectors to work closely with each other, the regulator and the government, to chart out the best possible path that is a win-win for everyone. The regulators focus on providing COVID relief to financial institutions in India as well as globally to support the consumers and small businesses both financially as well as otherwise has been a result of continuous dialogue and engagement. Luckily, in our country, both the government and the regulators have been carrying this dialogue to ensure that we create the best solutions for the citizens. So here we are. It's time to embrace the new normal, to recover, rebuild, and reimagine. In the end, I would like to quote from the words of G.R.D. Tata. Boldness and open-mindedness have always characterized original thinkers. Again and again, in human history, startling developments have taken place when creative geniuses have turned their back on traditional and orthodox concepts. It has been rightly said that whereas the ordinary mind readily accepts the old and is incredulous of the new, gifted or well-trained mind is receptive to the new and skeptical of the old. Thank you very much.